Thank you, guys. So here we are. Thank you, Cassie. Such joy, such greatness to be here together. You know, this month we're raising our voices. And I was thinking about that this week, and I know, being a Latina, I've raised my voice a lot of times with passion, so, but this is different. This is a little bit different. This is really us standing in that place where we're free to be who we are, be authentically ourselves, like the beautiful reading that Melissa read today. To be in that place where we can know that, the bridge, there's always a bridge in troubled waters, So today we're going to be concentrating more on nourishing not only ourselves, but those healthy connections in the relationships that we have every day, because we have lots of relationships, lots of people that we come into contact with today. And I decided to add these bridges, not walls, because I always feel like, for me, when I was nurturing relationships in my life, there was always this time in our lives, in my life, that I tended to hold back, to want to go like, no, maybe this is not for me, But being boundary keepers is not just keeping boundaries, of course, right? Is learning how to set boundaries. And I'll share with you a couple of things that I learned about setting boundaries, One of the things that I learned was say what you mean what you say, but don't say it mean, Lots of times that happens, and blue, here it comes. Here's another one. Pause. Pause. Why do I have to pause? Well, here's the acronym for pause. Postpone action until serenity emerges. Again, that's when you're in the midst of a situation, it takes a minute, for serenity to just settle in, get to that place of us just wanting to say what we mean at the moment that we need to say it, Because for the longest time, I honestly did not know that it was the way that I presented myself in these situations that made a big difference, so that, things can flow with me and that other person or that situation in my life. It took me a while. So I'll share another one, People can't take my joy away. You know why? Because they didn't give it to me, Obviously, they did not give me my joy. I work really hard every single day to embrace the joy in my life and to have joy in my life, So, these are the things that I have had throughout the years to learn, because I was not a boundary setter. I really don't. Because, who likes conflict? Not me. I do not do well in conflict. Not at all, The first thing that I do is just shrink down in conflict, And bridges are, and I've learned this, bridges in the relationships that I have are for me to really, really get to a place where the empathy in my heart and the compassion in my heart and the connections that I allow myself to have with other people are genuine, and I can be my authentic self, Walls don't do that. Walls, for the longest time, isolated me. They really, kept me separate from even myself many times, because I did build walls for myself. I really did, But I'll share with you my guru. Oh, my guru is sideways. How did he wind up that way? This is my guru. He's what designers call a jack shoe, a Shih Tzu Jack Russell mix. He's a little mutt. you know. And this guy just loves his daddy, loves his dad. Daddy can do no wrong. But I'll tell you what, he's in constant conflict with his mommy. Constant. It is 24/7 with mommy, okay? Mommy takes the toys and put them back in the toy bin. Nope, we're taking all the toys out and spreading them out, you know. I don't want my toys in the bin. Put the beds back in place. Nope, we're going to flip the beds. They're not any good, you know, upright. We want them flipped up. So about a month ago, you know, I already had the title for this talk. I'm in the shower. And normally when I'm in the shower, he comes in, peeks his head, lets the shower hit his face, and he gets a little wet. And then he sits outside on the rug outside the shower to wait for me. So this one day, you know, I finish my shower, I get out to step on the rug that's outside. No rug. No rug outside the shower. So I go like, okay, I'm going to need to raise my voice here, you know, and the first thing I do is raising my voice, and I go to my Latina place, okay? I go, Cesar, you know, but he's not coming. So I said, okay, there's 2 other rugs in front of the other sinks, you know, the sinks. So I won't fall. I dried my feet, and I look over there, and no rugs in front of the sinks either. So I'm like, okay, all right, now I need to get out there and find out where these rugs are. So I step out into the bedroom, and guess where he is? On top of all the rugs, gently sleeping on top of the rugs. I'm like, dude, what is going on here? You know, and notice, you know, his name changes when I'm upset. It's Cesar, you know, get the wase. So what does Caesar do? Because this guy, if you Google no boundaries, you get his picture in there. He has no boundaries. He doesn't know what a boundary is. His whole life is a bridge. His whole life is a bridge. And he is my mirror. And I get to watch him unfold. Because the moment that I step into that bedroom and I asked him what he was doing, this is what he does. He gets on his tummy to show me he's showing me his little spots, you know. So life goes on, you know, and what do? I bend over. There are no boundaries. There's only love. I bend over and I rub his little spots. I rub his spots because that's what he wants, and that's the way that he lives his life. And since he is my mirror, and he shows me every day that I need to stay open and receptive, you know, to the joy that I have in my life at the moments that I have it, with whomever and whatever is going on. Because Brene Brown, in her book, Brave Wilderness, says, there are boundaries everywhere, even in the wilderness. There are boundaries everywhere, you know. And when I first read that quote, I was like, you know, maybe not. You know, how can babies come into the world? There's no boundaries there, you know. There are boundaries everywhere when you really stop to look at it. Because even if you're going to pick up a little baby, you know, you have to know and understand how to pick up that baby, you know, when they're going to need to get fed or their diapers changed, you know, so that whole thing. But, you know, history has always been there for us to learn from. And one of the things that I went to when I was thinking about walls was the Great Wall of China. The Great Wall of China. 13,171 miles long. And it was built throughout, you know, many years. It was built during the Ming era, which was over 2,700 years ago, you know, by 800,000 workers. 800,000 people were involved in this China Wall. But one of the things about this wall is that it was keeping people separate, you know, and that is part of our history that teaches us something. Because I don't want to live a life of separation. And they did it very early on, saying we want to stay away from those people, those tribes that don't agree with us, that might do harm to us. There goes the fear, right? And separate. us from them. So they build this wall in pieces throughout this many years. But you know what's happening to this wall today? It's crumbling down into ashes, little by little, even though hundreds of thousands of people go to visit every year this wall, little by little, this wall is tumbling down. Because that is how the universe works. It says, we're not here. We're not here to have these type of walls around us, and these are the lessons that history teaches us. Here's another great one. The Berlin Wall. The Berlin Wall was one of those walls. During our time, actually, I'm not quoting ages. I don't know your ages down there. The Berlin Wall went down in 1989, so I was, an adult then. But it was one of those things that made me think about it, because someone had to raise their voice and say, bring down that wall. Bring down that wall. And what happened? Because it was keeping so many people separated. What happened at that point? When that wall started to come down, all those families and all those people. And I remember watching this on television, watching all those people come together in love with one another and seeing each other for the first time in some cases. It was one of those beautiful experiences that, again, history teaches us about. That it's not about building walls. Again, Brene Brown says that it is maintaining the courage when necessary in the midst of family and maybe some angry friends and people, that we get to feel like we're in an untamed wilderness. And when we get to that place in our lives where we feel that untamed wilderness, that's when we start to wake up and say, no, this is about love, about loving each other, being open, letting others voluntarily evolve in their own way, and me not saying things differently or looking at them differently, Ernest Holmes says, when we shall learn to receive our visions of reality as a result of having entered that temple not made with hands, then we shall truly become liberated. The tabernacle which Moses erected in the wilderness will have disappeared. The temple made of wood and stone, which Solomon built, will have crumbled, and the real temple, the spiritual prototype of our external forms, will be revealed. It will be revealed to us little by little. I'll tell you, my bridges today didn't come from me waking up one day and saying, oh, I've been building, all these walls all my life. They didn't come. It was time. It took time for me to become aware and for me to accept and for me to act upon these things in ways that I learned from all of you, listening to all of you, of practicing principles of science of mind over and over again, because it's about repetition. Brene Brown also says in her book, setting and maintaining boundaries is vital for honoring our spiritual journey and safeguarding our mental, emotional well-being. Safeguarding ourselves, putting those things in place, that will keep us healthy and well, mentally, emotionally. And I want to add physically to that, because in some cases, physically, I know for me, I held on to a lot of those things, along my life's journey. I'll share a story with you. When I was 6 years old, and I might have shared this before from this podium, when I was around 6 years old, just to an aside, I grew up in a very abusive alcoholic home. And I decided that as soon as I could jump over this wall of this life that I was exposed to, I was going to be different. I was going to have a different life. And when I became a person that could do that, adult enough that I could jump over that wall, no longer to look back at all those things that I was experiencing. I jumped over that wall, and guess what happened? I took me with me. I took me with me, and I took all that stuff that came with me over that wall to the other side. And what happened was, all I did from that point on was build walls in relationships. If you did something that I didn't really appreciate or said something, guess what I did? I would snap you right out of my life. Boom, cement wall. It wasn't even a fence, you know. And what happens? What happened when I was doing that? Other people were building walls. They were building those same walls. Not protecting me, you know, isolating me from situations and a love flow between us, you know. And that's what happens. We move into this journey of life, into this place where we say to ourselves, okay, it's time for me to really own where I am today, to open up, to be my authentic self, to feel the aliveness of the wind blowing in my hair. You know, it's up today, but when I have it down, it blows in my hair. To really be able to dance, you know, dance and be free in the way that I want to be free in my life, you know, today. And it's taken time, like I say, it's a slow process, you know. In these teachings, we learn that we are one, we're all connected in this life. And the other thing that I've learned is, you know, I years ago I heard this word, autonomy. And autonomy doesn't mean that I get to say anything or do anything when somebody, you know, puts up a wall or says something. It means that I have the opportunity to step into that higher place of understanding, you know, to say what I mean and mean what I say, but not say it mean, to say it with love, to say it with joy in my heart, you know. So I'll share a couple of principles throughout this time of putting together this talk. I just, you know, little by little, I get to sort of open myself up in ways that I never knew, because yesterday I was talking to someone, and one of the things that we were talking about was how sometimes we find ourselves in these situations where we're acting differently and doing things differently, where all of a sudden we're not behaving in the way that, you know, we thought that we should be behaving or that we acted in the past, that all of a sudden something new is happening, you know. So personal freedom includes responsibility. What is mine to do? What is mine to do at this very moment? What is important for me to communicate, to say out loud? So many times you know, the stuff just came out, you know, and then later on I had to step up and make an amend at a situation. But my autonomy today is about me being able to also be open and receptive to how other people are feeling on the other side. And that's how my bridges have started to open and become more flowing and more loving and more giving, you know. So what is important for me to communicate? Love, joy, peace, serenity, you know. Those things that I know that I have inside of me that I can share with you today, you know. Second principle is, what are my intentions? Oh, okay, this is a good one. I was always seeking approval from people. Seeking approval. You know, everybody, please love me, please, you know. But in seeking approval, one of the things that I've had to learn, that I couldn't go around, you know, begging other people for approval. You know, I had to learn to just allow things to flow naturally and not to be in a place of constant people pleasing, of, you know, being out there in a place where I can actually speak my truth, you know, and say, give others information. Give others the right information that they might need to be able to come and express themselves, to me. Let them know that I love them. Let them know that maybe something didn't feel right at this moment. Because, I used to think that people could read my mind all the time, but that's not so. People can't read my mind all the time. So I have to be able to give them a little bit of information when they need it, And that unto itself is, again, it's taken some time. It's a journey. It's a journey, Do you ever get to a bridge and you hear the ding, 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 and all of a sudden you have to stop because the bridge has to open and the boats have to flow through whatever needs to flow through, And sometimes in me being able to give others information, I have to stop and let the bridge open, gently open, so that the right information can flow through and the right decisions can be made, for both of us, not just for me, for both of us, Learning to respect others for who they are as individuals. This was a tough one, I'll tell you. It was a real tough one because I would get up in the morning and, people had to actually be the way I wanted them to be, I mean, in many cases, even with Caesar, it's like, dude, can't you see what I want you to do, And that's how I expected people, to be, because, again, they could read my thoughts, but it was taking their dignity away. I wanted them to be who I wanted them to be. But the bottom line was that was not fair to them because they had their opinions, they had their likes and their dislikes, and that was not, it was not fair to them for me to act in that way, So opening up those bridges of love, opening up the flow, I love that word, the flow, and being able to just let Spirit come in and be guided by the voices and honoring other people and their likes and dislikes, because we're all so different, but we're all so alike. We're all here for the mutual aid of caring for each other, loving each other, being present for each other, enjoying each other's company. I used to think that my family got together, what did they get together for? To beat up on each other, right? No, we come together because we're family and we want to be together. And I had to learn how to do that. And I had to learn how to listen. And it was okay for them to have likes and dislikes, And this last one, I could be different and still relate to people who are different than me. It's a tough one. It really is. But for me to maintain close relationships, because that's what I want, me to have those intimate relationships with people, for them to feel comfortable around me. There's a saying that says, we have to teach others to respect us. Well, I have had to learn how to respect myself so that I can learn how to respect others and honor other people as individuals and accept their appearances. So today I'm going to share a sensitive story. It is Mother's Day. And when I stand on this podium, something happens where I need to bring something to light. Because when I'm up here, actually, I'm talking to myself. I might be speaking out loud, but I'm always talking to myself. In 1988, I decided that I was going to detach myself from my mother. I was going to not speak to my mother because I need to mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically heal. But I didn't call my mother to tell her that. I just did it. I did it. I stopped calling. I stopped sending cards. And all because my mother was different. She said different things than me. She believed different things. She had different likes and dislikes. But guess what? We're all mirrors for each other, right? And the woman that you see up here, I am my mother's daughter. But one Sunday, I was at a service, and Eric Butterworth, from his beautiful podium and with his beautiful words, said these words. He said, don't forget that love is not finding a person to love. It is being a person of love. And those words really hit me, because I was not being a person of love with this woman who was just being who she was, who might be different, who I thought was different than I was, And today, thank God, through the years, and once I heard those words, though, back then, something opened inside of me, and of course, I picked up the phone and called my mother. And from that day forward, I have to tell you that love bridge that was built was so, so powerful. Because one thing that I did recognize, that all those things that person was this incredible person that is standing here. Because the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree, right? So here I am, being that person. So today, because it's Mother's Day, I get to voice that story with you. And I also want to let you know, my mother's picture is on, and actually Phil's mother's picture and father are on our kitchen counter. For the reason, Mother's Day is not just today. Mother's Day can be every single day. And every single day I see my mother's picture on that counter, and I get to voice and say, hey, Mom, how are you doing today? I love you, Mom. Because I build bridges today. I have bridges in my life today. Bridges of love, bridges of joy, bridges of understanding, bridges of connection. Healthy, nurturing bridges, So I'm going to end with this beautiful reading from Dennis Merritt Jones, and then we'll pray out. Just consider the lives you touched during the span of a day, a year, or a lifetime, perhaps without ever realizing it. Relatively speaking, if we are all separated by only 6 degrees or less, maybe it is the universe's way of helping us realize our oneness, our interdependence, and the ripple effect is the connective tissue that allows us to share the experience with others. And underneath this, he has a small little poem. It's called Together We Are One. A song needs a singer for it to be sung. A bell needs a ringer for it to be rung. The sky needs the sun to give it light. And the stars need the darkness to shine so bright. The rain needs the clouds need the sky. Birds need the wind to soar and to fly. The rose needs the rain to help it grow, and the stream needs the ocean for it to flow. Can you not hear the music play? Can you not hear the universe say that we are all one family? Yes, we are one. War needs peace to heal the hate. The fear needs love, and love just can't wait. We need each other. Oh, can't you see? Yes, I need you, and you need me. And together, all together, we are one. So may the bridges of your life always be open and receptive to something new, glorious, and just wonderful, for us to experience and rejoice in together. Because it's not about othering others. It's about loving each other, being there for each other, saying what we mean and meaning what we say without saying it mean. So let us pray. All right. As we come together on this glorious, glorious day, this day where we know that there is a power and infinite intelligence that is always, always alive inside of us, always guiding us, always directing us, always allowing us to learn from each other, to see each other with God eyes, with eyes of love, with the knowing that walls don't need to be thick walls. They just need to be an expression of light, an expression of information, an expression of knowing that we are in this together. And as we allow ourselves to be the bridge of the world, be the bridge of our community, be the bridge in our homes, where love can flow, where everything comes together with love, with understanding, where we build upon each other's knowing with light and vision and direction, knowing that the journey we take and the decisions we make and the commitments we make go in that direction that we want to go, allowing ourselves to know that we are enough, to know that others are enough, and to see their light shining as our light shines. So with this love in our hearts, this knowing in our hearts, we give great thanks and appreciation for all the many blessings, all those blessings that come today with the knowing that there is a Mother, Father, God in our lives, each every day and every moment of the day. As we allow ourselves to just be who we are authentically in the moments that the light shines brightly on us. So we just let this prayer be released into that nothingness of which these words come, which I know I am just a channel. I am just a channel today. I know these words have come from a greater knowing and a greater intelligence. So I lay them upon that law that loves us dearly and always says, yes, yes, my beloveds. Yes. You are one. You are good. And I see your goodness. So I just let it be, release it, and together we just say, and so it is. Amen. Thank you.